Okay, so let's see how the energy flows in the entire system. So the grid will come in, will go into my battery inverter here through these wires, and it will loop around to this terminal and then go up and over into my sub panel. So the grid at night, the grid will be able to flow through and supply loads to my house if I don't have enough battery power. Like I said, it's at night, so I don't have any sun. So if I used up my battery during the day and into the night, my house is still going to get power. It's just going to be from the grid, and I'm paying for it. Okay. Now, the ideal situation is that the solar system that I already showed you comes in to my sub panel on that breaker. And once the solar enters into that sub panel, all those electrons are going to go up and down the bus bars, and they're going to hit all of these other breakers. I think I've got 16 circuits in my home, and it's going to supply power to everything in my home as best it can. All right, and I do pretty good here. Once in the summertime, once it's about 7:30 until about 5 or 6 at night, my home is being powered by the sun, and I have plenty of excess solar to go into the battery. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so the sun hits this breaker, feeds the loads in my house. Those electrons are going to backfeed up into the gutter, over here, into my battery system, into this terminal that was actually feeding that panel, right? But once you get all this cool stuff, the flow can go either way. So now I've got solar that comes into this battery system, and the battery will take that solar, the battery inverter will take that excess solar, it will convert it to direct current to charge these batteries. Once the batteries are full and we still have excess solar, well, good old Ohm's law is just going to allow those electrons to go into this grid terminal, flow up here through the pass-through box into my main panel, and if I have my air conditioner or dryer on, then the solar is going to feed those loads. If I don't have those two devices on, then the excess solar is just going to go out into the grid and I get money for it. Pretty cool. Yeah? Now, this all changes when the grid goes out. Okay? So, when the grid goes out, when it goes down, this and any energy storage system will flip over to backup mode. They all have it. All energy storage systems, lithium ion or otherwise, have a backup mode. And when this flips over to backup mode, that automatic transfer switch I was telling you about, if it's internal or external to the rest of the system, it flips over. The battery inverter creates voltage and current that mimics the grid. So all your appliances, all the stuff that you had on before the grid went out, will still stay on and continue to work. Yeah, that's the cool part, right? Now, another cool part is that the voltage and frequency that the battery inverter makes. Oh, hang on, we got airplanes, hang on. Yeah, it's a price you pay from living like 3 miles away from the airport. Normally, I love it, but it just seems like those F-18s only do the touch and go, so I'm trying to record something. But I love that sound of freedom. Yeah? All right. So where were we? The grid is out. The lights and everything came back on. So something else really cool that happens is that the PV inverter, which the breaker is right here, along with all the other circuits that are getting battery power. The PV inverter looks at that and says, oh wow, my grid is back. And it will start to make power now. Isn't that cool? And so now we're in a very similar situation that we were in when the grid is up. So we feed all the loads with the solar. If there's any excess solar, it goes into the battery system. If the batteries are low, the power electronics will charge the battery. Now we get into this really critical area here, right? So the grid is down, we have excess solar, and the batteries are full. Now, we cannot export that excess solar to the grid when the grid is down. That is a big no-no. Yeah, but we don't have anywhere to put it. Now, some battery manufacturers have these things called dump loads where it'll turn on like a hot water heater somewhere, right, to send those electrons. Usually it's to a heating element because that will suck any extra electrons like that. But if you don't have that, which a lot of manufacturers don't, then what we have to do is throttle the solar down, right? Because we don't have anywhere for that excess solar to go. We don't want to overcharge the batteries. So what the majority of these systems will do is increase the frequency that it's producing. Here in North America, it's 60 hertz. Yeah. So the battery systems will create a 240 volt, 60 hertz grid. But when those three conditions exist, the battery system starts to play a little trick on the PV inverter. The battery system will start to increase its frequency, and it increases it to an upper threshold that normally, when grid tied, a PV inverter would have to disconnect from the grid because it thinks that the grid frequency is bad. So we're just using this UL 1741 requirement to our advantage. And so if we don't have anywhere for the PV to go, since the grid is out, all these systems are going to do is start increasing that frequency. And then the PV inverter says, oh, dude, my grid is bad. Disconnects. We stop PV production. And now the entire house is running on battery only. And so we'll let the state of charge go down to whatever percentage it is. For this one, it's 89%. And when the state of charge gets down to 89%, the battery system will lower the frequency back in spec to 60 hertz. The PV inverter will think, oh wow, hey, my grid frequency is back in spec. Let me start making power again. And it does. And then we just keep repeating that cycle as often as necessary. It's really cool how they had this set up. Now, when the grid comes back, everything has to wait 5 minutes, right? PV inverters, battery inverters, you have to wait 5 minutes for everything to be back in spec. And once that happens, the ATS in your energy storage system will flip back over to grid side, and then you'll be back in the normal operating condition. All right, so that's it for this kind of down and dirty intro to energy storage systems and solar and how they all kind of interconnect in your home to provide power when the grid is up and when it's down. If you have any questions, man, just send them to me. I would love to hear it. Again, I talk about this behavior in my book, The Battery Powered Home. You can find it on Amazon. Amazon #1 bestseller. So proud of that. And I have to thank everybody out there who bought the book. I really appreciate it, like from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. And if you could go and leave an Amazon review, I would really, really appreciate it. And next time we're all together, I'll buy you a beer. But if you have any questions, just let me know. You can also go to my website, snarkysolarguy.com, and we can have a discussion there as well. Y'all take care. Take it easy.